And I figure I may have to, will I have to fill then this last hour
You
of the
just
show?
talk and I'll watch.
Hello, welcome to the Yellow Submarine, your dedicated Beatle channel. Please make sure to like the video, hit subscribe, and that notification bell to get notified whenever we release a new video. First finding immense fame as the Beatles' lead guitarist, George Harrison became one of the world's greatest rock stars. Once the group disbanded in 1970, Harrison became a successful solo artist like his Beatle bandmates, releasing 12 albums until he died in 2001. The musician passed away when he was 58 years old after being diagnosed with lung cancer. George Harrison was born on the 25th of February in Liverpool, England. Raised alongside 3 siblings by working-class parents, he was encouraged to pursue music at a young age because his mother saw how happy it made him. While pregnant with George, she listened to exotic Indian music featuring sitars and tablas, music that would later have a profound impact on the Beatles. Although Harrison studied music throughout high school, guitars were not a part of the curriculum. After hearing an Elvis Presley song, he immediately knew that rock and roll was going to be a major part of his life. He then became obsessed with guitars, which prompted George's father to buy him an expensive, high-quality acoustic guitar. After learning how to play, he met Paul McCartney on a bus. The two bonded over their shared love of music, and Harrison was invited to join the Quarrymen, the band that would later become the Beatles. Harrison eventually became the lead guitarist of the Beatles. While on tour in Germany, Harrison was deported for being too young to work in nightclubs. As the years went on, Harrison started to participate more and more in the creative process of the Beatles, and introduced the Beatles to many international musical influences. Perhaps most notably, Harrison started to infuse the Beatles with Indian music, using traditional instruments such as the sitar. Eventually, tensions mounted within the group, and George Harrison finally started to quarrel with Paul McCartney after years of accepting condescending behavior from his bandmate. In addition, Harrison started to become increasingly frustrated with Lennon and McCartney's leadership of the group, as they rarely allowed Harrison to record his own songs on the Beatles' albums. By 1969, this made very little sense, seeing as Harrison became a talented songwriter and lyricist. With the release of Abbey Road in 1969, Harrison proved to critics that he was on equal footing with McCartney and Lennon in regards to songwriting. Something and Here Comes the Sun are 2 of the Beatles' most popular songs, and they both were written by George Harrison. Not only that, but he rejected suggestions from McCartney and other bandmates during the recording of these tracks, establishing creative control for the first time. Just as the band's dynamic was changing in Harrison's favor, the Beatles informally split up in 1970 following the release of McCartney's solo album. Solo career. Because the Beatles constantly rejected George Harrison's songs throughout the years, he started his solo career with a massive amount of unreleased singles up his sleeve. That being said, Harrison had already released 2 solo albums prior to the disbanding of the Beatles. Following the Beatles split in 1970, George Harrison equally had a successful career as a solo performer. He released his first solo album titled All Things Must Pass in the same 1970, along with its lead single, My Sweet Lord, which became an international #1 hit song in many countries. The eminent guitarist went on to amass $6.15 million from the record sales of the album mentioned above that sold 6 million copies in the United States and 500,000 copies in Britain and Canada. He made a massive sum of $6.84 million from the sales of his compilation album, Best of Dark Horse 1976 to 1989. However, in 1970, Harrison released his most critically acclaimed album, All Things Must Pass. It proved to be extremely popular in both North America and in Europe. Harrison also experienced considerable success with the 1973 album, Living in the Material World, which contained Hindu-inspired themes. He continued to release many albums throughout the 70s and 80s, many of which achieved gold or platinum status. He founded his film production company, Handmade Films, in 1978 along with Dennis O'Brien, and was credited with the production of films such as Time Bandits. The movie became the company's most successful and acclaimed effort as it earned $35 million in the United States within 10 weeks of its release on a budget of $5 million. George Harrison won many accolades during his lifetime, which included the British Independent Film Awards Lifetime Achievement Award, Billboard Century Award, Hollywood Walk of Fame Starr, and a 2004 induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. After incurring massive amounts of debt due to mismanagement, the company ceased all operations in 1991. This was largely due to fraudulent and negligent behavior by Dennis O'Brien, Harrison's business manager. After suing O'Brien for $25 million, Harrison received an $11.6 million judgment in 1996. During this year, after George Harrison's passing, his estate earned $16 million. That year, sales of George Harrison's solo albums skyrocketed, selling more than double the solo albums released by the late John Lennon. Although Paul McCartney became the richest Beatle, George Harrison was a close second at the time of his death. Having achieved an illustrious career as a member of the Beatles and as a solo artist, George Harrison's net worth at the time of his demise was an estimated $400 million. Although he is not the richest member of the Beatles, as Paul McCartney sits on a net worth of $1.2 billion, he racked up more wealth than his bandmate Ringo Starr, whose financial value is estimated at $350 million. Beyond the earnings from his musical activities, George Harrison's net worth was also raised through his works as a film producer and record producer. At the time of his death, George Harrison earned a colossal $400 million. The musician left his entire estate to widow Olivia Harrison and their son Donnie. At the time of John Lennon's death, who was shot by a fan named Mark Chapman in 1980, an official report revealed each Beatles member's net worth at the time. According to the report, Lennon was worth $200 million, while McCartney was worth $400 million, Starr was worth $80 million, and Harrison was worth $150 million, which can be equivalent to $400 million in today's dollars. As a part of his huge fortune, which is around $400 million, George Harrison left the earnings from the Beatles' royalties all to his widow Olivia and his only child, Donnie. When Harrison was alive, he was known for using his wealth for charitable causes. In 1973, he founded the Material World Charitable Foundation, coinciding with the release of his fourth studio album, Living in the Material World. At the time of its release, Harrison donated the album's royalties in perpetuity to the foundation. The charity itself was founded to encourage the exploration of alternate and diverse forms of artistic expression, life views, and philosophies, as well as a way to support established charities and people with special needs, the foundation site notes. Olivia and Donnie have continued George's charity work into the present day, most recently donating $500,000 to MCCARTNEY'S COVID-19 Foundation, Save the Children, and Doctors Without Borders. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash the like and subscribe buttons. Goodbye and see you on our next video.